Greetings, fellow humans. Bad Mark here with another transmission from MechTech Keyboards, and today we're taking a look at a new keyboard. Now, late last year, KBD fans, a shop or brand, I guess you could say, that has brought some interesting keyboards to market. I probably said I'll sit here for a while and talk about their previous models, but let's talk about one in specific, which, if you've been in the hobby for a little while, you may have heard of it. Came out in 2022. There was a Tiger 80 and a Tiger 80 Lite. Now, this is the Tiger 80 Lite. I did actually, I'm going to say late 2022, did a build video for this. And actually, funny enough, I'm still running the same switches and the same keycaps. They just kind of became attached to this keyboard, but I will be rebuilding this. Late last year, though, KBD fans announced the Tiger 80 Lite Gaming. Now, it starts at $49.99. This one was $119, and that was a good deal for back then. That's just an indicator of how much the market has changed in such a short time frame. But this new keyboard, the Tiger Lite, actually has two PCB options. One is called the Tofix version, and the other one is the HE version. So they basically, you can choose to have either a PCB that is a standard mechanical keyboard, or you can choose a PCB that's ready for magnetic switches. So I went ahead and picked the Tofix version. Now, there is, I think, two firmwares that you can load with this one. It comes, I believe, stock with QMK. So not only are we going to be taking a look at, the comparison. Now, I do know, like this one only had shine down RGB, where the other one actually has per key RGB. But while the pre-order was open, they also had some cases for fairly good prices. So I went ahead and got a new one. So I'm actually going to change this one out. I actually want to do a silicone bore and maybe do a few other mods so that I can have both cases and I can go back and forth into. But that's going to be for another video. But today we're going to be building the Tiger Lite 80 Gaming Tofix Edition. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up, see what we've got included in the kit, because it is a full kit. You have to build it yourself. But honestly, these are the ones that I truly look forward to, and I'm going to try to get this out as soon as I can. I've got a whole backup of editing to do. I apologize. I've been incommunicado for a while. I've had some things to deal with, but things are starting to get, well, I guess as normal as they can for these times. Anyway, let's go ahead and open up the case and see what we've got in here and get started on our Tiger Lite 80 gaming build from KBD fans. Now, this keyboard I bought myself with my own, but I do also buy keyboards, and this one I bought because this keyboard, the Tiger 80 Lite, the original one from 2022, was one of my favorite keyboards and was in rotation for a long time. Obviously, it's been a while since I've used it in my daily, but since I pulled it out, when I received notification that that one was on the way to me, I used it for a little over a day, and I remembered why I enjoyed this keyboard so much. So I look forward to improvements that may have been made with this new keyboard. But again, this one, we'll come back to it here in the future and update. All right, so first we've got here is the case. I ordered mine in a solid black. The case that I got for the Tiger Lite is, for my original Tiger Lite, is white. So I kind of wanted to do black on white, white on black, kind of classy themes when I do that build. But like I said, that's for another day. Now, the cases definitely do look extremely similar. So I hope there's parity between them. If not, oh well, I've got an extra case for this one. So we can take the shell apart. We see that we have, as is best when doing plastic, you have metal inserts for the screws. That it's going to give you a much longer lifetime, and as far as being able to screw things in and out of the keyboard without stripping the actual screw hole. Safety, I know we can go in there many times without it affecting, you know, just the basic, you know, mechanisms of it locking, just because we're screwing and unscrewing. It is a very lightweight case. Got KBD fans at the bottom. It looks quite similar. It has the little pockets for the gaskets there on the side. So it looks like it's going to be, I'm going to link to the original build, but it was a very easy build. So I hope this video at least helps people not be intimidated by a keyboard build, because there's really not much to it. And if you like mechanical keyboards, plan to get more than one, it's just a good thing to know. I mean, you may only build it one time. That's fine, because that'll be the keyboard you'll use for years. But knowing how everything comes together, plus these builds are very simple, and for as simple as they are, stock, they sound pretty good. I'm expecting this one is probably going to sound good as well. Now, it doesn't come with the reason I got the original one in a clear plastic is because I saw the tape bond that it came with it, because it had a sticker, so I wanted to be able to see that from the bottom. So that's why I got that one. But this one does not have a tape bond. When we come back to it, probably do some mods, like I said, along with the Tiger 80 as well, so we can actually, you know, compare different mods, different switches, etc. All right, also included in the case, we have a lovely USB-C to USB-A connector cable with a nylon braiding finish, some really heavyweight, almost feels aluminum, but they're just a nice plastic branded USB connector cable. It's a decent cable. I'm not the biggest fan of aviator cables, but I do like a nice nylon cable, especially one that will lay flat. Call me a simple man. Now we also have what looks to be the feet for the black case. We have some screws, and we have, I believe it's a T6 or an M6 screwdriver. I forgot the size off the top of my head, but it even includes a tool, and I do believe that the original one also did as well, which is a really nice thing to do, because I mean, not everybody's going to have a tool set handy, and especially, you know, size that's just not as common. But thankfully they're not using Phillips or straight head screws. Phillips screws, the problem is that there are like 3 different types of Phillips head screws, and a lot of times the screwdriver and the switch head, let me correct myself, there's not 3 different types of Phillips head screws. There's 3 different types of screws. All look like they're Phillips head screws upon initial just inspection. But when you look closer, you can actually find differences and see that some of them are more likely to strip than not. But just using Torx, in my opinion, it reduces the chance of locking or stripping a screw. So it's a great design decision. And again, this one, I mean, this kit without the other case, it was $49.99. I don't know if that's what it is still, because now it's in stock, not pre-order. But I mean, that's more than half off the original Tiger 80 Lite. So again, where we've come so far in this hobby. Then we have a bag with our screw-in stabilizers, which there are a lot of kits that will not include stabilizers, and you have to get your own. From what I recall, the original Tiger 80 Lite, the stock stabilizers they included were really nice. They have the rings for putting at the bottom below the PCB, so that it gives it a nice tight fill without, you know, taking a chance of stripping. I mean, obviously you can torque it hard enough. You don't want to do that. But it also gives it a nice padding to the stabilizer. So always nice with this. Then we have what appears to be our Hi-Fi layer. So it looks like, I don't know if they did this with the Tofu 60, the version 2 they just came out with. I didn't pay close enough attention. But this is one of the first kits that I can recall that actually not only includes, no, it doesn't have the Hi-Fi. Never mind. It does have the PET plastic layer, but I don't see. Let's open it up and confirm before I stick my foot in my mouth. This is what feels like either an EVA. Yeah, it feels like an EVA. It's not quite as thick enough to be a pour-on, but this is between the plate and the PCB assembly, and this is to sit on top of the PET, and it feels like it's 4 mil. This is the stuff that I use to mod older keyboards, but it doesn't have an IXPE layer, which is the foam layer that's kind of like PE. So I'm surprised because I've seen some include just the IXPE layer, but not too many pre-builts that include only the PET layer, and the first kit that I can recall that has a PET layer. So, and we're going to build it stock with everything that it comes with for the first build, and let's see how it sounds. I'm very interested. I gotta say, I'm very interested. All right, we have our PC plate, and all right, so we may have, I don't even recall if the PCB has alternate layouts. Doesn't look like it has an alternate step block, but it does actually look like it has the ability, at least for the space bar, to do plate mounted stabilizers. The other stabilizers do not appear to have the notch, but this is the PC plate, which is standard. I didn't order any other plate. So this is basically, if you just pick the default, just pick your color, this is what you'll get. It's a nice clear plate, but yeah, it definitely looks like it has the ability for either a Sangen bottom row or a standard bottom row. No F13 spot, so it looks like we're going to have one use over here. Like I said, these spaces look like you could do Sangen or standard. That'll be interesting to see. And we'll probably still have a little gasket socks like we did on the Tiger Lite 80. More and more I'm seeing how this one's built, the more and more I'm comfortable in thinking that the new case I got is going to work with my existing Tiger Lite. And last but certainly not least, it is the PCB and the daughterboard. So this again is very similar to what I recall with the Tiger Lite 80. Except that one definitely for the PCB, it was a flex cut if I'm not mistaken. But the daughterboard looks the same. So here, let's see, where's the bottom? Let's go. No, I guess we don't have the ability for a Sangen. There is no alternate layout on here. All right, well, that's fine. TKL, in my opinion, I mean, unless you need a numpad, TKL has basically got every key that's needed. We have the Tiger Lite V2. So officially, I guess this one's the Tiger Lite V2. Because, yeah, the other one was, I saw it called either Tiger 80 Lite, Tiger Lite 80, and Tiger Lite. So, but Tiger Lite V2, that works a lot more for me, especially in my programmer brain. So, yeah, it does look like it's substantial. I'm going to guess that this is a 1.6 millimeter thick. Yep. Try not to turn. All right, yeah. So we got 1.6 millimeter thickness PCB. It just feels very substantial. I guess I've been getting a lot of the flex cut PCBs, and obviously because they're all flex cuts, they're missing some. So this one just feels nice and solid. And it's going to be very nice. It actually has a download port. It's a U8, I believe it's a UART port. Ground, SWC, SWD, and VCC. That almost sounds like USB, but it's called a download port. So I'll have to look at that here in the future. But for right now, let's go ahead and get to building them. So one thing, if you want to use the PET sheet, you want to put it down before you put down screw of stabilizers. I'm just going to leave it on there for right now. I'm going to guess that we have the gasket for the plate in here as well as the screws for the PCB bottom, but we can get to that later. let's go ahead, and this looks like we can put over the stabilizer, so we can leave that out for right now. All right, so first things first, let's go ahead and build and install our stabilizers. All right, since the default is the 6 1/4, I don't know if this is like, hey, you can change it out in the plate stabilizers, but we'll take a look at it when we come back. So I'm going to set that one aside. So we've got our 4 2Us, and we need all 4 of them, one for each of the shifts, one for the enter, one for the backspace. All right, here we have the stems. So I'm going to go ahead and lightly lube the stabilizers before I assemble them and attach them to the PCB using a little bit of Lube 3G from Gazoo. And basically, for the most part, I find that putting a little bit inside of the housing, just a little bit on the walls. Next, I would usually lube the stem, but we can see that we still have feet on here. It's rarely seen nowadays, but this is what comes stock. Doesn't mean that you can't get better, but it means that in order for us to get the best out of it, I'm going to go ahead and clip them off. I know that's not necessarily stock, but it's kind of just a standard. I think I did it with the original Tiger Lite 80, if I'm not mistaken. In my opinion, side cutters are usually the best. We'll just make sure that we get the one with the feet, and we're left with that kind of almost like a Z or an H. That's more of a Z, but one up, one down. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to each of these stems. All right, so once we remove the tap dancing feet, as I like to call them, I like to grab the stems and then just do a nice light coating inside of the compartment of the stem where the wire is going to be going through. And then while we have it in hand, go ahead and line it up and put it into place in a housing. Once we got the plastic parts all lubed up, we can go ahead and assemble, because at the point, for me, it makes it easier than hand rolling, because I really only lube them at that point, at the elbows, and those are exposed, so we can get to that. So going ahead, taking the wire, making sure it's going through the stem, and then we lock it into place. We'll put the wire through, making sure it's through the stem, and making sure it's lined up with the other stabilizer. We lock it into place. I like to just go ahead and build up all of them. All right, now that we have the stabilizers built, we can either do it at this point or we can do it once they're on the board. I just find it easier to do it at this point, but you'll find that there's many, many different ways to lube stabilizers and switches. I have my own particular way. Well, some like it, some may disagree with it. It's fine. You find what works best for you in the end. So I basically just like to add a little bit right here along the corners where the stabilizer meets the plastic. As we already took care of the plastic, on plastic and the wire inside of the plastic, this spot right here is what I feel just needs a little bit extra, because that's going to get a lot of movement, and as long as it has no problem, it should make for a nice, smooth, stabilized key. And yes, I do call this greasing the elbows. All right, support the stabilizer from the back, and then add the screw one at a time. Flush with the PCB. And now for the last one. Alright, got a couple of screws and some washers left over, which can always come in handy in another build or when we come back if we lose one or need to replace one. Now, at this point, it's probably best because the screw-in stabilizers obviously require complete disassembly if you need to reattach them. It'd be a good idea to get, random switches and keycaps to load them up and test to make sure. I've gone through, I'm pretty sure they're good. If not, I'll have to eat my words. But it's basically a good idea to load up a switch and a long key and test it out, make sure there's no ticking, make sure there's no issues with the movement, make sure that it's nice and smooth up and down and not making any unwanted noises. All right, next we're going to go ahead and lay the foam layer on top of the PCB, and we can go ahead and lay the plate on top of that. Perfect. All right. Since we don't have, at least I don't believe we have posts, there might be posts. I should speak before I check. We've got our gaskets. We've got what I believe are case screws. I'm not sure if these are plate screws. They could be, but I didn't see any protrusions, and we've got the feet on the plate where they could go. So I don't believe there is any, so I'm just going to grab a couple of switches and lock them into place. Let's see what I got handy. Get one right there in the middle. I'm trying to get the corners, the sides. All right, so once we're secure that the plate and PCB assembly is good, we're going to want to install the gasket socks, and you can see that they have a horizontal cutout so that they can slide on to the T's that come off of the plate. So now you do want to be careful once you have these loaded up to kind of put it out of the way, as they can easily fall off and get lost like I just did. Alright, so we're going to set that out of the way for the moment. And we have the case, the bottom half. We've gone ahead and used the 4 smaller bolts to go ahead and screw in the daughterboard. Make sure it's not tight. Make sure it's nice and snug, but not over tight. And also make sure that it's lined up with the hole so that there's no interference when installing the port. Make sure there's no interference when taking the cable in and out. All right, so now we're going to take the JST cable. I'm going to flip this over again, being careful not to mess with the gasket as much as possible. And we take this cable. We want the pin openings facing down. Connect it to the PCB. Alright, once we have that plugged in, we'll carefully lay down on the bottom of the case. And each of these gaskets is going to go in to its own little cavity at the bottom of the plate. So we're going to want to go around the exterior and fix like spots like this. I want to make sure that each and every one of them is fully inside of its destined space. Alright. Well, you can see we have a really nice amount of flags. But we'll test once all the switches are in, because right now we're only holding on with a few legs. Alright, then we go ahead and attach the top half of the case. Alright, making sure we're nice and snug. Go ahead and flip it over and go ahead and install the rubber feet onto the bottom of the case So the longer bolts that we get are the ones that are meant for the case. So for switches, I decided to go with some Gateron Smoothies. These were courtesy of Pulling Keys. And for keycaps, I decided to go with this Dami keycap set called Snake Chaser. But Snake is with 2 A's. I reviewed this a while back. This was sent out to me by KP Republic. So I'm going to load all of this up, and then we'll see what it sounds like. And go ahead and close out. Like I said, I've got more content planned for this one as well as the case. But I just want to go ahead and get this out there right now. I do have a whole bunch of videos on my video edit queue, and I'll get us through as many as possible. And I got some pretty cool stuff to announce here coming up soon, the next 4-6 weeks or so. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and build everything up. Let's go ahead and do that. Here we are, loaded up with the Gateron Smoothies. I gotta say, I like the tolerances on the plate. They're tight enough to hold the switch clips into place, but they really didn't give me much of a fuss, even though it's fairly flexy. Now that the switches are in, you can see we still have a good amount of flex. It's not as crazy as it was when you only had a couple of anchor switches in play, but I wanted to take a look at the RGB here real quick, just before we put on the keycaps. So find a free USB. Fit. All right. Oh, that was almost instant. It's very nice. So as I thought, it's looking really nice and bright. Big part because of that light diffuser that's in the Gateron Smoothie. So it really brings out the light, and the light diffuser has enough mass that if you remove it, it's actually going to give you a slightly different sound profile, which I find it a little bit deeper with the diffuser in there. So that's why I keep it in. Plus, you know, RGB, I never complain. I mean, I don't have to have it, and I have plenty of boards I love that don't have RGB. I have a couple boards that don't have RGB, but do have a caps lock indicator underneath the caps lock, and I really love that, especially when they allow step caps lock, because I have a few windowed ones I like to use. All right, so I just wanted to take a look at that real quick. Let's go ahead and load up the keycaps and see where we're at. All right, so we've got Snake Charmer loaded up from Dami Key. There are some yellow highlight keys, but in my opinion, I just found that these colors, they're a little bit more subdued, but in my opinion, they feel a little more classy, and it's almost like a reverse Dolce in a way, or reverse dark Dolce, I should say. But I quite like it. And I mean, these are good quality keycaps. Anyway, easy to load up, feels really nice, sounds really nice, especially if you love clacky. I was pretty sure that's how it was going to come out. One of the reasons that I didn't just go ahead and load it up with the U4Ts, because I know that in order to get this keyboard, it's almost like a blank canvas, let's say, and with different mods, I think it will allow for a pretty broad range of sound profiles. And being that I have another that's very similar, and it's going to have the same generation case, I should be able to compare them. So I'll probably take one in one direction, another in another direction. The case for the other one is white, so we'll be able to easily tell them apart. One thing I will have to say is that this brings all of the quality. I haven't found any particular feature that stands out over the original one, but I will say the original one was $119. This one was $49.99. So this one was much more affordable, and it sounds just as good as the other one did. Now, I did do the other one stock with some MT3 keycaps, which obviously, well, they amplified the clack and made for almost a thoughtness through clacky reverberation, if that makes sense. I'll put a link down below to the original build and sound test of the Tiger Lite, which is the V1 now, because this one is the V2. That's the gaming. So again, this one's Tofix, so it's going to have the QMK via. If there's anything specific I find, I got to see if I can find the QMK source. If it is QMK as they listed, KBD fans is usually good about that. So Via sees it, so I'll come back to it at some point. But I mean, basically, it's 40% of the original price, and it's better. I mean, it's better in as far that it has RGB instead of just a couple of shine down on the perimeter. Now, the original one did have a silicone mat down for the bottom. This one does have that emptiness, but because it's only really using plate PCB foam, almost structurally, so it's really, I mean, obviously there's some sound dampening going on, but beyond that, there's not much else. A tape mod to act as a low pass filter, silicone pore to not only give it a little bit more density and weight, but also to trap more of those high-pitched sounds, those reverberations, those vibrations down in the bottom of the case, and get a deeper sound. And like I said, another one, maybe we'll go silent, maybe we'll go clacky, maybe we'll go really poppy, marbly, creamy kind of thing without, you know, maybe a little bit of thok in there, but not full-on thok. I don't know. We'll see. We'll have fun, though. That's for sure. So I'm going to go ahead and leave you guys with a stock sound test of the Tiger Lite 80 V2 Gaming. Now available at KBD fans. And like I said, there is an HE version of that. And if you guys would like for me to take a look at that, just let me know. I'll go ahead and bring them up and order me an HE PCB. I do believe they have them now in stock, if I'm not mistaken. The last I checked, they were in stock. They could get run out of stock. So I'm going to guess they're pretty popular. KBD fans have been known, I mean, for some, you know, big models, the Tiger, the original Tiger, which is an aluminum keyboard, TKL, Tiger TKL, the 80 Lite, the Tofu. That's probably one of their most well-known, but they have quite a few other ones that they've put out. So I'd probably spend the video would probably double or triple in time if I sat here and went through the models that they've put out. So it's nice to see an affordable and well-built and thought out keyboard from a company that has been around and is obviously responding to the market, because there's a lot that has shifted in the market and prices have, for a big part, come down. As a customer who paid full price for this keyboard and shipping, I'm very, very satisfied with this keyboard. I think this is a pretty good design, and like I said, I think it serves as a good base. It's well priced that, you know, I think the majority of people loading up a set of switches and keycaps, it's not like they're going to be disappointed. If they like it the way it is, then they can just keep it and move on. But because it has a lot of potential. That would be my say for it. That would be what I would call it. It's got a lot of potential. And if they want to get into modding, well, because there are a lot of folks that there's sometimes they buy keyboards and it's like, the keyboard sounds pretty good stock. They're like, well, what can I do to mod it to sound better? I'm like, well, I mean, you can change switches and change the sound somewhat, but it has a very good sound base. It's just, it has the foams, it has the PET, the IXPE, silicone, different things that act, in concert to deliver a very pleasant sound and feel. So, but again, I think this is a good one. It has a good amount of flex, because it's kind of like a suspension plate PCB. We've got the tabs that are going around. I mean, actually, no, it does have a couple here, but basically in the middle. But it's not so much. There's some keyboards that they might go a little bit overboard with flex, in my opinion anyway. For me, this has just the right amount of flex. I could type on this all day long and I would have no complaints. And I think I got a good value for my money. Anyway, if you have any suggestions, anything you'd like for me to do, to check out, when I come back to it, we'll check out the Via. We'll see if we can find the QMK source. If I do find it, I'll link it down below. I'm going to leave you with the stock sound test of the Tiger Lite Gaming 80 V2 from KVD fans. I'll put links down below. I want to wish everyone out there a wonderful rest of your day. And until the next transmission, keep calm and keyboard on.